You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast.
You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. My name is Shawn Wilkie, and along with my awesome co-host, we interview the innovators in this space every week. Ivan, please go ahead and get us started.
Hey, I'm Ivan Zach, and I'm really excited to introduce a colleague of mine, Dr. Bob Goldstein. Dr. Bob is a practicing veterinarian for more than 50 years. He is the editor of the Healing Center for Animals, a referral practice treating cancer and other chronic diseases using nutrition, herbs, and natural remedy protocols. He's a co founder of Earth Animal and is currently the head of product innovation and development. Bob, with his wife Susan, co authored the book The Goldsteins Wellness and Longevity Program for Animals. Also, he's the editor and co author of the veterinary textbook Integrating Complementary Medicine into Veterinary Practice, published by Wiley Blackwell. Bob, welcome to the show. Thank you for finding the time.
Okay, thank you. Nice to be here. Nice to meet both of you.
So, 50 years of veterinary medicine, where it's been and where it is right now, and is what you are doing changed a lot, considering that you're using more natural approach and sort of Eastern medicine than Western. How does that evolve with your experience and where it is today?
Great question. It's come a long way. Obviously, in the 70s, when I went into practice as a young veterinarian, it was very, very controversial to be a holistically oriented veterinarian compared to a conventional veterinarian. I think today it is immensely different, and in my opinion, much better today, much more acceptable than it was back there. I think that those first couple of decades were really very difficult, very, very difficult, being made fun of by your colleagues. It was a very difficult time. Obviously, now it's much more acceptable. When Wiley Blackwell approached us to write that book on integrating complementary medicine into veterinary practice, they did so because there was a standoff in the veterinary field between the holistic and the conventional vets. And they said, could you write a book that brings together? And that's where we coined the term integrative. And since then, I think it's just night and day from where it was in the early 70s and 80s.
So with that, there's a number of things that you talk about, and we'll kind of start one by one. So natural flea and tick prevention nutrition. Can you tell us more about it, and how did you come to this type of treatment, and what are the products are used through nutrition to prevent fleas?
Well, to give you a little history, I was on the research team that developed the original shell flea collar back in the 70s. And it was atrocious. It was really terrible. And I think that what I learned in that experience is that I, as a veterinarian who have taken that oath to cause no harm, just as a personal opinion, do not feel comfortable using the animal's body as a delivery system for a poison. And so therefore, I set out to see if there were natural alternatives to flea and tick prevention, and we found them. And we're very proud of them. And we have just finished a clinical trial at the veterinary school in France that proves that the prevention using these natural products in the prevention of fleas and ticks really do work almost as effectively as these insecticides. Again, that's my personal opinion.
So, Bob, what are the products?
In the flea and tick, we have a natural flea collar. It's an herbally based flea collar. It has essences of herbs in it, which have individual abilities to prevent and repel. They're not insecticides, which kills fleas and ticks. They're on the prevention side. And obviously, my theory is if you can prevent it, you don't have to treat it. So that's simply is that what it is. We have external products there. We have the drops and the flea collar. And then we have internal products that work on the immune system and actually biochemically change the odor of the skin. And they help to repel fleas and ticks.
That's
Wow,
fascinating.
fascinating.
Are there studies that confirm that, and what is the effectiveness of this? How is the research based?
We at the veterinary school in France, they have an entomology department, and what we did is we tested our flea and tick collar both in vivo and in vitro. We did it in the laboratory, and then we took it out into the field in France and checked it on and tested it on living animals. And the efficacy in most of the cases were above 90% as far as the prevention of fleas and ticks without having to kill them. Now, we're not claiming to be an insecticide. We don't kill anything. We are on the prevention side. And my feeling is, again, if you can prevent it, you don't have to treat it. So yes, to answer your question, we do have a clinical trial that proves the efficacy of our products in the prevention of fleas and ticks attaching to the animal and causing the bite.
Interesting. And then there's also a plant-based protein. So for animals like dogs and cats being carnivores, how is that working for them as the component of the food, and how effective it is in their diet?
Okay, you and I are both veterinarians. We understand what an obligate carnivore is on the cat and what a carnivore is on the dog. I don't believe in the word carnivore. I believe that they're obligated to certain amino acids and fatty acids. And if you can produce those and give that to the animal, if you can give those fatty acids and those essential amino acids, wherever they come from, you're satisfying the nutritional need of that animal. The reason that we're believing that plant-based is essential at this time is that the new technology, like on the microbiome study, which we are in the process of doing, and studies that are proving that there are glyphosides residue in the meat of factory farmed animals, we feel that if we can produce a plant-based food that meets the essential amino acids and fatty acids of the animal, and we can eliminate the possibility of potential pollutants that are in the meat that we're feeding them, we can go a long way to not only preventing disease in animals, but making them healthier. I said it was going to be controversial.
And yeah, as I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, should I consult with you on my nutrition? Because I eat a lot of the steak from the from the farmed animals and everything else. And your proposal of this sustainably, well, the factory farming and sustainability is something that we look at that ourselves in our diet, and are there other directions in the nutrition for humans that are looking into this?
Where this information has come from is the human side. You know that the human side is always 10 or 15 years ahead of the pet side. And so therefore, all this information is available. You look up glyphosate accumulation in the meat of factory farmed animals, and that's Roundup. So that's the side effect of what that does when the animal eats that. And look up advanced glycation end products. That's the cooking of these and denaturing these proteins at such a high temperature. Look at the side effects of those. And that's what really got us into saying, we need to find out if there's an alternative. Can a plant-based diet nutritionally be sound and support the health of both dogs and cats?
Yeah, and so that was the next question on the plant-based diet, specifically in pets. Do you have any information or studies or just even personal experience that says that switching to a plant-based protein for dogs and cats extends their lives, enhances their lives? What does that look like, Bob?
I'm not sure there's enough data for the extension of life right now, but clinical disease, chronic dermatitis, kidney disease, liver disease, they are finding and discovering both on the human side and the animal side that the feeding or the eliminating of meat in the diet and using a plant-based diet really improves the day-to-day quality of life of the animal. Whether or not longevity is extended, I don't know that at this point, but our research we're doing, as I said, we're doing microbiome studies. Much of this technology was not available in the 80s when I came into the pet industry, but now it is available. So between the information you can learn from the microbiome studies and the effect on both the intestinal tract and the immune system, and if you can do that and you can improve the microbiome by switching from an animal-based diet to a plant-based diet, that will be the proof needed. It's in process right now.
Yeah, so interesting. So, the obvious question that comes up into my mind is, what led you down this path? you're an outlier, like from all of the other people that we've spoke with. But how did you end up here, trying to push this information forward?
Well, there's another aspect. We all took a oath to cause no harm. The other aspect of looking at the plant-based as compared to the nutritional quality to make sure that a dog and a cat can survive on a plant-based diet is the adverse effects of factory farming, both on the animal, the suffering that these animals go through, and on the planet. We are running out of space. And the raising of animals for food is one of the biggest contributors to environmental pollution. So there's a number of different things that can be addressed with this and handled with this. And I think that the movement on the human side with Impossible Burger and Beyond Burger and all the things that are happening is really leaching into the pet industry very good. I think it's going to be a game changer over the next 5 years.
Very interesting. So with this, and I switched my sort of view on this in the recent years. I'm an emergency veterinarian. That's my sort of core focus. And then every time I think about the food supplements or dietary changes, that was always beyond the scope of what I was trying to treat. And then recently, just on my personal health, I started to look more into the supplements and the food supplements that anecdotally and maybe some documented have effect on my cardiac condition, my blood pressure, very naturopathic sort of approach. So I take a bunch of supplements. I take probably like 10 different kinds every day, twice a day. But I don't know if I see the direct effects of it. And I am monitoring blood work and things like that, but I can't catch the actual effect of it. So to me, as I reflect on this, I think that I'm taking these because I believe in certain studies that I read, and I think that they will be helping. Now, being an emergency veterinarian, I'm very sort of pragmatic, approach. Something needs to bleed in front of me to fix it, and it's not bleeding.
Mhm.
So, do you think that the customers for the products that you're promoting and producing are mostly people that will actually, or they see the symptoms and they could select your products, or it's the people like I became now, they believe in the science behind it, therefore they want to do better for their pets, regardless whether they see the symptoms or not?
Well, great question. Obviously, as I've been in a referral practice for the treatment of cancer for the last 40 years using alternative therapies. So I have a lot of experience on terminal animals going on to a program which is supplement based, nutrition based, as compared to chemotherapy, as an example. So I have a lot of experience in that, and clinical proof is certainly there. I believe that going on these supplements, if it's done the right way, has a tremendous impact on the health and well-being and prevention of disease of both people and animals. To answer your question specifically, you're healthy, so you're not seeing the big difference. But if you had a person with inflammatory bowel disease, you have a person with arthritis, you have a person with any kind of chronic degenerating disease, and they go on these type of programs, and in 3-4 months they're like a new person, that kind of literature and proof is all over there. So I can guarantee you that proof that you're asking for is there.
It's very interesting. Again, maybe because of the nature of sort of the emergency medicine I've been in
Yeah,
professionally, it's not that profound effect that I see.
yeah.
So for those that do want to focus on it, is it a particular conditions that people should look into when they're looking into your products, or is it just in general anybody who owns a pet should focus on this as a preventative measure, as well as the certain conditions, just like oncology and other things?
The unfortunate answer to that question is that in my practice, as an example, they would come to me when the condition was there and they needed help. And they were offered the chemotherapy by their oncologist. They said, I'm not doing chemotherapy. I need an alternative. And they came to me, and I put together a natural protocol that, in my opinion, was equally as effective and produced the same longevity as them on chemotherapy. Wellness, if you can get people on wellness to stay well, is the way to go. Unfortunately, that's not the way it happens. People wait until they get sick or the animal gets sick, and then they look for the alternative. My opinion is that you should start on that program and be preventive and be proactive, and the body will stay healthy instead of waiting for something to happen and have to treat it.
Interesting. And if someone is getting a new cat or dog, where would they look for your products if they believe in the preventative aspects of it? And how do people find you?
Just go to earthanimal.com. Every product that we have, including all the scientific research that we've done and everything that we say about our product, is transparent and right on the website. And that will give people a good starting point, or if they're already aware of the holistic approach, they can get whatever product they want. Right now, we're only in the pet area. In the middle of this year, we'll be entering the veterinary field, because I feel that the biggest impact that we can make on the holistic side is to have the veterinarian get behind that. And so what we've done is we put together a line of products for veterinarians that are a couple of steps above what we sell to over-the-counter in pet stores. Over-the-counter in pet stores is a preventive approach. The alternative, holistically oriented products that we're putting together for veterinarians are going to be more on the quote prescription side. You don't need a prescription, but they're going to be stronger and be more effective because they'll be under the control of the veterinarian.
So, in this journey, it seems like you are the specialist in this from the 70s. What gets you excited every morning when you get out there to do your craft? What is the most exciting thing for you?
Well, I've been treating sickly animals for all these years. In my opinion, right now, the most exciting thing that I am doing right now is the research into the plant-based, because as I said, not only does it affect the day-to-day health of the animal, which is what I've been trained and what I have signed on to do, but it helps to prevent suffering and supports the sustainability of the planet. That to me is a very exciting place to be. I obviously have a lot of experience, 50 years of experience that I'm bringing into this journey. But this is what really gets me excited, because I think it's needed. And number two, I think it benefits animals, which is what I came here to do.
Yeah, it makes tons of sense, Bob, and you can tell your passion and enthusiasm lies there. We've had a couple of guests with cultured or lab created meat on the show. What's your view on those products compared to plant-based?
I think I am a fan of that. If you could cultivate the cells of an animal and propagate another piece of meat that way, I think from the planet's perspective, it's great. And certainly from the suffering of animals, it's great. I think it's just a little bit premature in their development to really have a definitive answer. I know that one of your guests was Sharon Falconer and her product. I am a big fan of what she's doing, but I don't think it's far enough advanced as compared to, let's say, plant-based or fermented plant-based type of products, which are really proven. So I think the cultivated side is very exciting, but I'm not sure there's enough information to say how good it's going to be for the health of people and animals.
Yeah, we are what we eat, right? Whether we're a cat or dog or a human. So it's definitely an area where there's lots of change and exciting developments. So every episode we like to end in the same way. So we've got a couple of questions for you. The 20 minutes that we had blew right by. The first one is a book, a TED Talk, a YouTube video, something that you've come across in your career that you think our listeners would find interesting.
Well, we have our book, the Goldsteins Wellness Program. It's written in the middle 2000s, so it's probably a little bit dated, but that would be a good book to get people to understand what the holistic approach is.
Excellent. And then the second question that we ask at the end, is there another innovator or someone innovative in our industry that you would recommend to be a guest on this podcast?
In the industry? Well, there's another veterinarian. This is a veterinary podcast at Earth Animal. Dr. Chris Hansen is fabulous. He's a practicing veterinarian, and I have indoctrinated him onto the holistic approach, and he has grasped on. The good news about Chris, different than me, he's in day-to-day clinical practice. So he has a real good sense of what's happening medically, what's happening holistically, and he really integrates them back together. So I would recommend Chris. The other person I would recommend is Dr. Feynman. He's a great guy. He's really focused on one medicine, which is really a big trend where human and veterinary medicine can really support each other. So those two, I would highly recommend both of them.
Thank you so much for listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. If you want to hear about our new episodes, please follow us on any social media channel. Also, you can check out our website at veterinaryinnovationpodcast.com. See you next week.